I destroyed my 25-year marriage for a fantasy and lost everything. My name is Sarah Thompson. I'm 49 years old, and this is the story of how I destroyed my marriage, broke my family's trust, and ended up completely alone. I never imagined I would become the kind of woman people whisper about. You know, the woman. The wife who throws away decades of marriage for a secret affair. The mother who shatters her family because she convinces herself she deserves something more. I used to read stories like that online and shake my head. How could someone be so selfish? Now I know exactly how. Because I became that person. For 25 years, I was married to my husband, David. We lived in Manchester, raised 2 beautiful daughters, built a comfortable life, and from the outside we looked like the perfect British family. There were no dramatic rows. No abuse. No scandals. No addiction. Just a steady life. And perhaps that was the problem. At least that's what I told myself. David was dependable. He worked hard, paid the bills, attended school events, fixed things around the house, and never gave me a reason to doubt his loyalty. But somewhere in my late 40s, I started feeling invisible. I wasn't Sarah anymore. I was mum. I was wife. I was the woman who sorted laundry, planned family dinners, and remembered birthdays. The exciting woman I once was seemed to have disappeared. The mirror became my enemy. Every new wrinkle felt like proof that my best years were behind me. I tried speaking to David. I suggested weekends away. Date nights. Something different. Something spontaneous. He always smiled politely and said, "Maybe next month." Next month never came. And slowly, resentment started growing inside me. Like mold hidden behind wallpaper. Our daughters, Emily and Sophie, were both at university by then. Whenever they visited home, they spoke about modern relationships, freedom, personal happiness, and living life without regrets. One evening over wine, the conversation drifted toward marriage. I admitted that things felt stale between me and David. They meant no harm. They were simply discussing how relationships had changed. Someone mentioned open marriages. Another spoke about couples reinventing themselves. The conversation ended. But the idea stayed with me. And that was where everything began. Months later, unable to sleep one night, I downloaded a dating app. I told myself it was harmless. Just curiosity. Just looking. I wasn't planning to meet anyone. That lie lasted less than an hour. The messages started arriving immediately. Compliments. Flirtation. Attention. Desire. Men asking about me. Not the school run. Not council tax. Not mortgage payments. Me. For the first time in years, I felt attractive again. I felt noticed. Alive. Wanted. And instead of deleting the app, I kept opening it. Every day. Every night. The messages became conversations. The conversations became emotional connections. Then eventually, they became something physical. I crossed a line I could never uncross. The first time should have been enough to stop me. It should have shocked me back to reality. Instead, it changed me. I became secretive, calculating, dishonest. I carried my phone everywhere. I changed passwords, deleted messages, invented excuses, lied without hesitation. And strangely enough, I became a better wife. At least on the surface. I laughed more, put more effort into my appearance, showed more energy at home. David noticed. Of course he noticed. But he didn't know why. I could see suspicion growing in his eyes. Every question felt dangerous. Every glance felt like an investigation. One evening he asked directly, "Sarah, is there someone else?" My heart nearly stopped. But I lied. Without blinking. I called him paranoid. I accused him of imagining things. I made him question his own instincts. Looking back, that betrayal was almost worse than the affair itself. Because I wasn't just cheating. I was making a good man doubt his own reality. Months later, David told me he had hired a private investigator. The moment those words left his mouth, I knew it was over. Not because I felt guilty. Because I felt terrified. And terror always reveals the truth. A few weeks later, he placed a folder on the kitchen table. Photographs. Dates. Locations. Messages. Evidence. Enough evidence to destroy any lie I had left. I sat there staring at the proof of my double life. A stranger looked back at me from those pages. But that stranger was me. Every choice. Every lie. Every betrayal. Mine. David didn't shout. That somehow made it worse. He simply looked at me and asked, "Was any of it real?" I couldn't answer. Because I wasn't even sure anymore. The affair had never been about love. It had been about validation. About chasing a feeling. About escaping myself. And now everything was collapsing. A few days later, our daughters came home. David hadn't told me. I think he needed support. Or maybe he simply couldn't carry the burden alone anymore. Emily was crying before she even sat down. Sophie looked pale with shock. They asked if it was true. For the first time in months, I told the truth. Yes. That single word shattered them. I will never forget the look in their eyes. Not anger. Disappointment. The kind that cuts deeper than any insult ever could. Emily asked quietly, "Didn't you love Dad anymore?" I burst into tears. Because the answer was complicated. I did love him. I just wasn't grateful for him. And there is a difference. The following months were a nightmare. David moved into the guest room. Then he moved out completely. Friends chose sides. Some stopped speaking to me altogether. Others offered sympathy but never looked at me the same way again. The men who had once flooded my phone with attention disappeared almost overnight. Suddenly I wasn't exciting anymore. I wasn't a secret. I wasn't a fantasy. I was a divorced woman dealing with consequences. And consequences aren't attractive. The loneliness arrived slowly. Then all at once. The divorce proceedings lasted several months. Each meeting felt like another funeral. Another piece of our life being buried. The day the divorce was finalized, we sat in silence inside a Manchester courtroom. 25 years reduced to signatures. When the judge asked if our marriage had irretrievably broken down, David answered immediately, "Yes." I hesitated. Only for a second. But that second told me everything. I understood what I had done. I simply couldn't bear the cost of understanding. After the divorce, the family home was sold. Watching strangers walk through those rooms was heartbreaking. Every wall held memories. Christmas mornings. Birthday parties. Family dinners. Laughter. Dreams. All reduced to estate agent photographs and viewing appointments. I moved into a small flat in the city center. At first I called it freedom. A fresh start. A new chapter. The truth was simpler. It was all I could afford. And freedom feels very different when nobody is waiting for you at home. The hardest loss wasn't David. It was my daughters. They still speak to me. But the trust never returned. One afternoon Emily said something I'll carry for the rest of my life. "I love you, Mum. But I don't trust you anymore." There was no anger in her voice. Just honesty. And honesty can be devastating. Years later, I heard David was doing well. Not exceptionally happy. Not remarried. Just peaceful. Stable. Healing. And that forced me to confront a truth I had avoided for a long time. David wasn't the villain in my story. I needed him to be. Because if he wasn't the problem, then I was. The affair never fixed my unhappiness. It exposed it. I confused attention with love, excitement with fulfillment, desire with self-worth. And by the time I understood the difference, everything valuable was gone. Today, I live alone. Some days are easier. Others aren't. Birthdays, Christmas, wedding anniversaries that no longer belong to anyone. Those days still hurt. People often ask whether I regret it. The answer is yes. Every single day. Not because I got caught. Because I finally understand what I traded away. If you're reading this while considering an affair because you're bored, lonely, or searching for something missing inside yourself, listen carefully. An affair doesn't heal emptiness. It multiplies it. You don't lose everything in one dramatic moment. You lose it piece by piece. A lie here. A secret there. A broken promise. A shattered trust. Until one day you wake up surrounded by the ruins of your own choices. This isn't a redemption story. There is no happy ending. No reunion. No miracle reconciliation. Just accountability. And the knowledge that some mistakes don't disappear. You simply learn to live with them. And sometimes, living with them is punishment enough. For more interesting and real-life stories, subscribe to my channel and stay tuned.